Hey guys, Andre here and welcome to Ask GX, where you ask and I answer. As usual, you send far too many questions for me to answer right here, but I'm going to choose the best ones and answer them right here, right now. So let's get started, shall we? Twilight Vati on YouTube asks, when will you make more of these? Well, Twilight, as you might have guessed, right now and just for you. Derick on YouTube asks, what is your favorite fighting game? So you might have been able to guess, but my favorite fighting game, if you count it as one, is Super Smash Bros. Either on 64 or Brawl on Wii. Melee, actually, I never got super into. I really enjoyed it when I played at E3 way back in 2001. I just didn't like the mechanics though once I actually got into them, and I actually prefer the playstyle of 64 and Brawl far more than either of those two. If we ignore Super Smash Bros., I'm not a big fighting game person, mostly because I don't like having to learn movesets and combos and combo breakers and all that. So I would probably but even with all that, I did get into Soul Calibur 2, mostly because Link was in it, of course. I found his moveset a lot of fun to use. And aside from that, I enjoyed Killer Instinct a little bit on Super Nintendo whenever I did have the chance to play it. But overall, Super Smash Bros. Is really the only game series I really ever play that much and am still into. I play Brawl on 64 countless hours. I can't even begin to peg how much I played those games. It's ridiculous. I still play them to this day. Karen and Daniel on Facebook both asked the same question. What's your favorite Zelda game? As with Mario, it's kind of like choosing your favorite child. Not that I have any, and actually, this is probably a far harder choice if I did. So for me, it always comes down to two things. It's either A Link to the Past or Majora's Mask. A Link to the Past is because it's probably one of the most perfect games ever made. The pacing is great. The level design is fantastic. And Majora's Mask because of its totally unique time travel mechanic, which I thought worked super well. It added a sense of immersion that few games have, with a 3-day time limit. And, the complete destruction of the world if you failed, which is something not many games actually delivers, aside from, like Pikmin is the only other game that really came close to offering that, a similar, feeling of immersion and dread, if you don't get off that, or if you don't finish your objective. Overall, I still have to give the edge to A Link to the Past, just because when I think about it, there's really nothing I would improve about that game. Just practically everything works perfectly, but, Majora's Mask is still really good too, and is my favorite of the 3D Zelda games. John on Facebook asks, what is your favorite Wii U game, and what do you think Nintendo could do to improve the Wii U? I still only played a few Wii U games, but of them, Nintendo Land is by far my favorite. It's the most fun I've had with a game in quite a while, and I just really enjoyed it. I just played over the holiday break again, and it's a fun time every time I play that game. I just can't get enough of it. It's such a charming, fun experience that's also novel at the same time. Beyond that, or beyond the games I've played, what do I think Nintendo could do to improve the Wii U? Really announce more games. Right now, besides Pikmin 3, there's nothing on the horizon I'm really looking forward to, and I'm sure that'll change come E3, but they really just need to announce more games. I'm sure we'll see some good things coming up. Mario Kart is a must, and I really want to see a 3D Mario game, so hopefully they deliver all of that at E3. Massachusetts7 on YouTube asks, how did you get the job to work for Nintendo? What were the requirements? So the great thing about working customer service at Nintendo, or really in general probably, is that there aren't that many requirements. I think it comes down to more down to, at least for Nintendo, like personality types, and how you work well with others. In my case, I didn't have that much experience. At the time, I only worked at a library for 4 years, and on an early version of GameXplain, way back in the day, where I had some videos similar to what I do now, not quite as high quality and definitely not as high in numbers. But yeah, beyond that, there wasn't much more to it. All that took was just applying through the temp agency that Nintendo used to find recruits, and yeah, I interviewed well enough to get the job. Now, of course, if you want other positions within Nintendo, I'm sure there's definitely more requirements or different requirements. But working in the call center, not too much, especially if you apply during the holiday season, which is when I applied, which is typically when they hire a bunch of people, to handle all the Christmas calls, and then they let them go throughout the year. Luckily, I actually held on to that job for basically a whole year. I was never let go, and I actually only left because I got hired by IGN. Yeah, so if you give it a shot. I think they're still hiring through Parker Services, it might be. That's the temp agency I went through. I'm not sure if things have changed since then, but give it a look if you're interested. Wally Up on YouTube asks, "Hey GX, what do you think will be the fate of the Mario & Luigi franchise now that Paper Mario's gone portable? Do you think they'll start seeing smaller digital releases as opposed to cartridges, or just drop completely?" That's a good question. I don't think we'll see them dropped as cartridges in favor of smaller releases. Mario and Luigi are pretty, for lack of a better word, epic. Especially by Mario standards. It's right in line with the other Mario RPG series, and they offer a pretty lengthy quest with a lot of locations you visit. So I don't see them compromising that at all. I do think we'll see another Mario and Luigi, especially because Alpha Dream hasn't really done anything since Bowser's Inside Story back in 2009. And I can only guess if we're working on at least something in the meantime, and hopefully there's another Mario and Luigi. And if it is, we'll probably be seeing it pretty soon, because we're just about at 3 years since the last one. I believe Bowser's Inside Story came out 4 years after the previous one. So that looks like, might stand a pretty good chance of coming out soon. Whether it's going to be a 3DS title, or maybe it'll ship over or go to a console like the Wii U, because of how Paper Mario worked out, that could happen. But I kind of hope to see it on. Actually, I really don't care what platform it comes on. The Mario Luigi games I've always enjoyed, except for the second one, and I would just like to see more of them. So I do think we'll see more. I just don't know when, but hopefully soon. This question comes to us from @thePokeTrainer on Twitter. GameXplain, does Nintendo pay good money? That's going to depend on where in the company you work. In the call center, it paid all right money for what the job was. I don't have much to compare it to, but I was making I think like $10 or $11 an hour, with time and a half for going overtime or working on weekends, which is about $15. Again, I'm sure it completely changes or it completely depends on where in the company you work. It's not a bad starting salary for an early job, and your pay I think does go up the longer you're there. I was just a temp though, as I mentioned before, so I wasn't too high on the pay bracket. Eric on YouTube asks, "Do you want another 3D Donkey Kong game like Donkey Kong 64? No, unless it's unless they totally revamp how that game works. I'm totally okay with never seeing another 3D Donkey Kong game. Donkey Kong 64 really just felt like a long, drawn-out version of Banjo-Kazooie, and was pretty much worse in every regard. So I definitely don't want to see another Donkey Kong game. I'd rather see another 3D Mario or Banjo-Kazooie. Donkey Kong can stay 2D as far as I'm concerned. Again, I'm open to them trying it again if they, figure out how to work better, better work Donkey Kong into a 3D space. But I definitely have no desire to see anything close to Donkey Kong 64 again. Julio on Facebook asks, "Do you like basketball? If so, do you root for any NBA teams?" Julio, I don't like any sports. I just never got into them, so I don't really follow any kind of sport. I might, watch the Super Bowl game if I, go to a Super Bowl party, and even then, it's mostly just to get the free food and socialize otherwise. Just never got into them, and I do like sports games, more of the fancy type, like I like the Mario sports games, or the Ken Griffey games even, I really enjoyed those. But sports never really did much for me. I don't mind playing some of them, if you count air hockey or table tennis. I like basketball occasionally to play it, and I used to play soccer when I was younger, but I was never very good at it, so. Mario Music 4U on YouTube asks, "Which Paper Mario game is your favorite?" Obviously that would be Sticker Star on 3DS, by far the best game ever made. Seriously, my favorite Paper Mario would either, I always used to think the 64 one was my favorite. Then I replayed Thousand Year Door and forgot how enjoyable the game really was. I actually think I enjoyed it more the second time than I did the first. Between the two, I think both excel at different things, and it's really close for me. If I had to choose, I'll probably still go with the 64 one, if only because I think the pacing's a little bit better, and I really like some of those I think overall the chapters work a little bit better too. But Thousand Year Door has, some of my favorite chapters, and the dialogue of that game is simply unmatched. So, again, it's hard to choose, but overall, Paper Mario 64, I think, would take it. Samuel Robertson 2511 on YouTube asks, "If you could create a Mario game, what would it be and what would you change?" So this isn't going to be particularly original, but if I could make a Mario game, I would want something more in the style of Super Mario 64. I just loved how well that game worked. Like, it really showed what 3D could do. It gave you these massive, basically these relatively massive environments for, at the time, and allowed you to go about the objectives in any order you wanted. I like to refer to it as basically the first open world game, and not because it was a full open world, but gave you like these micro open worlds. You're still allowed to have full full level design while enabling you to basically play around in these small sandbox environments and go about things in however you wanted, or just play around. I would love to see a Mario game return to that form factor. Not because I think it's necessarily better than Mario 60 or than Mario Galaxy, which I also really love. But I just want to see it return, you know, something more in that style. I think it's something that hasn't been done a lot since then, and I would just really like to see Mario, you know, offer something, a more open Mario game. Especially if it took place like in a true Mushroom Kingdom. You know, actually, now that I think about it more, I've actually thought about this before. I would like to see a return to that game, but with some adventure-style elements. Like, I would like to see a whole, like, realized Mushroom Kingdom, Toad Town you could explore, maybe with some, like, items you can buy. Nothing too heavy, like, I don't want a full RPG or anything. But I would love to see, like, a mixture of, you know, some adventure-style elements with a classic Mario platformer in a 3D Mario 64-style world. I think that'd be really cool. Euan on Facebook asks, do you think Nintendo will eventually stop selling their games physically in favor of eShop and other virtual purchases? Or will there always be a place for physical products with Nintendo? You know, it's always so hard to predict the future. You know, you can't go wrong with betting against other people's predictions of the future. I think in this case it's a safe bet that eventually everything will go digital. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. It might be a long ways, at least another generation away, I think. But I think it will happen eventually. We're already seeing Nintendo, of all companies, you know, going in that direction with full game purchases on 3DS and Wii U. And you know, this is something you can do on several other platforms as well. You know, again, I think it's just a matter of time before we go in that direction. iOS and Android, of course, are already fully in that direction, and I think it's going to happen eventually. Now, whether that's a good thing or not isn't, you know, there's pros and cons to it, especially in my opinion, because you know, I'm a fan of being able to lend out games or resell them if I, you know, get tired of them. Not that I resell games very often. I actually have most of mine still. But, you know, it's a good option to have, and, you know, I do like lending out games or being able to borrow other people's games. That's something you really can't do with digital games, and hopefully that's something that will become more prevalent as we move into, you know, digital space. I think it's something that Sony does on the PlayStation 3. We can lend a game, I think, up to like a week or something. Something Kindle does too, I believe, and it's something I think should be extended to games as a whole, and would make, you know, digital purchases a whole lot more, you know, a lot easier to take. So again, I think we're at least 10 years out, but it's going to get there eventually, I think. This question comes to us from Hickory on YouTube, and he asks, GX, how do you start video guides? Do you play through the entire game first, or do it blind? That depends on the game. If I need to get a review out soon, I usually tend to play through a game first for that purpose, but I need to play through it, do the review, and then I'll go back through it again for the guide. Even doing that though, it actually doesn't even help that much, because honestly, you know, there's so much in these games, I don't have time to really take notes or, you know, fully pay attention to where everything is. So I usually forget where everything is anyway, so I basically want to replaying it through a second time. You know, I'm like, for instance, in New Super Mario Bros. U, I don't remember what any of those star coins are, so I'm rediscovering it for the first time when I replay it for the guide. You know, in some games like Paper Mario, where I'm replaying it for the guide, I actually do remember a lot of how things work, and that actually does make it easier. So, you know, again, it depends on the game. For the most part, I do play through them first, you know, for the purpose of a review. But some games I do, you know, do the guide as I go through them. So, there you have it. We have a very special question from my dad on YouTube, and he asks, what game after Mario 64 set the standard and benchmark in gameplay? Alright, Dad, I know what you're looking for, and I pretty much have to agree with you in that Resident Evil 4 basically set the benchmark for a ton of games after it came out. You know, I can't say for sure off the top of my head whether that's a game that I think is one of the most important, you know, set the standard in gameplay, second to Mario 64, which is my personal choice for the most important game, or one of the most important games ever made, as far as gameplay is concerned. But, you know, Resident Evil 4 definitely is up there, and it's, you know, one of my dad's favorite games, it's one of mine too. And I think just everything that game did is so perfect, like it just nailed everything, whether it's, you know, the visuals, or the fantastic gameplay, or the mini sandbox environments it gives you to play through. Just everything about that game, the atmosphere, the immersion, the sound. Yeah, you know, I really do think it set a high standard for third-person shooters. It definitely influenced how games are made. You know, Gears of War, Cliffy B from the Gears of War development team has never disguised the fact that he borrowed a lot of elements from Resident Evil 4, and that in turn inspired other games. So yeah, you know, Resident Evil 4 is definitely high up there. I pretty much agree with you, Dad, on that one. Finally, Kid Recon on YouTube asks, Dear GameXplain, is this the stupidest question you've had to answer? Love, Kid Recon. Rest assured, Recon, this is by far the stupidest question I've ever had to answer, but thanks for sending it in anyway. And with that, this Ask GX is done. Now, if you have any stupid questions of your own that you'd like me to answer, send them in by posting either in the comments of this video or to our Facebook page or Twitter account, and I'll choose the most interesting ones and answer them in the next episode. Thanks again for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain.com for more of your gaming needs.